Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into something that is just incredibly intense, deeply personal, and honestly universally relevant. We're looking at a 50-year existential quest to answer one of the heaviest questions of the human experience. I mean, we've all felt it at some point, right? That hollow echo when you finally achieve something great, only to sit back and wonder, is this it? Is this all there is? Today, we are exploring a really compelling source text that walks us through the struggle against life's inherent emptiness, and infinitely more importantly, how to actually finally escape it. So how far must we go before nothingness appears? It's kind of a haunting thought. We spend our entire days running, building careers, acquiring stuff, just constantly striving. But this creeping, inevitable void always seems to be waiting for us just around the corner. What actually happens when we hit the end of all our earthly pursuits? Does the nothingness just win? Let's find out.
All right, part 1, the search for meaning.
Now 50. That is a massive number. The text we are unpacking today represents a 50-year quest by the author to find a true, lasting anchor in life. Just pause and think about the sheer magnitude of that for a second. Half a century of seeking answers, walking down different paths, desperately looking for a meaning that doesn't just evaporate when the sun goes down. 50 years is a lifetime of trial, error, and sheer exhaustion, which honestly makes the conclusions we're about to uncover incredibly hard-earned and absolutely vital.
We almost always trick ourselves into thinking earthly pursuits are the answer. We think, if I just get smarter. But the author realizes no matter how much knowledge you gain, you look up and there is always someone higher, someone further along. Okay, what about deep friendship? Well, even the longest companionships eventually succumb to the sheer distance of time and circumstance. And then there's the big one, money and wealth. Sure, it buys a lot of comfort, but as the author profoundly notes, it absolutely cannot buy back a self that is no longer empty. The void just stays there. Which leads us to part 2, the theft of nothingness. We need to really nail down what we mean by nothingness here, which is translated from the word woo in the text. Listen, in this context, it isn't just some passive, empty space. It is an active, greedy force representing a life entirely apart from the creator. It's literally a bottomless pit that quietly, without making a single sound, steals away the very things we value most. You can pour all the earthly beauty, success, and desire in the world into it, and it will never, ever be filled. It just eats and eats. Think about it like this. You have a cherished childhood toy, maybe an old iron ring pushcart. It brought you immense joy. But time passes, and it gets replaced by, say, a modern PlayStation 5. And give it a few years, there will inevitably be the next big replacement. The really profound realization here is that it's not just the toys being replaced. It's us. When those items are swallowed up by time, it's actually our easily happy, younger selves that are being consumed by the nothingness. Man, this brings us to a truly heartbreaking moment described in the text. The author talks about looking at old photographic film, trying desperately to recapture that past joy, to mentally insert themselves back into those laughing moments, as if staring long enough could just reverse time. But nostalgia completely fails. In that moment, nothingness creeps in and just whispers, "You can't go back." It's a chilling victory for the void. It won again. So where does that leave us? Part 3. The Wisdom of Solomon. This silent collapse is just brutal. It's a systemic failure of earthly meaning. Deeply held values just collapse under the weight of it. Relationships unavoidably distance, memories lose their warmth, turning into cold, hard facts rather than living joy. And perhaps the most terrifying part? Nothingness doesn't just ruin the past and the present. It literally casts a dark, chilling shadow over your unlived future. It leaves absolutely no part of your timeline untouched. This feeling of absolute, crushing emptiness, it perfectly echoes the ancient, heavy wisdom of King Solomon in the biblical book of Ecclesiastes. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. It is endlessly fascinating that one of the wealthiest, wisest, and most powerful kings in all of human history wrote what is essentially the ultimate ancient handbook on existential dread. When you hit rock bottom, when 50 years of striving leaves you completely empty-handed, you realize exactly what Solomon realized centuries ago. Without God, the void consumes every last bit of it. But here is the dramatic turning point. Part 4. The Secret Weapon. The answer is a concept the author translates as presence, or yo. Now, let's be clear, this is not the presence of some fleeting earthly possession. We're not talking about applause, a temporary victory, or a fading roll of camera film. This is a massive, incredibly powerful theological anchor. It is the eternal, unshakable presence of God, the Creator himself. This is literally the only thing in existence that stands in direct, victorious opposition to nothingness. Think of it like a stage play. Earthly things are just fleeting passengers. They're extras. The second nothingness enters the scene, they quietly retreat into the shadows because, well, they never truly belonged to us in the first place. But God's presence is entirely different. He is not just another temporary actor on the stage. He is the ultimate author who steps right in and completely rewrites the script, giving the entire story a profound, eternal meaning it never ever could have had on its own.
Which ushers in Part 5, The Creator's Light.
Without the Creator, our worldly successes, our fancy degrees, our wealth, our little moments of pride, they are just brief sparks. They light up for maybe a single second in the grand passage of time before burning out completely. But the Creator's presence, that is an enduring, completely unquenchable light shining directly from eternity. It doesn't rely on our fragile, tiny human timeline to stay lit. And when that eternal light shines onto our lives, absolutely everything transforms. Suddenly, learning isn't just a rat race of endless comparison. Friendship isn't just a sad countdown to inevitable loss. Money is no longer an empty possession. Even our memories are redeemed. They are no longer painful evidence of what's gone forever. Those replaced toys we talked about, the childhood iron ring or the PS5, they aren't markers of lost anymore. They actually become purposeful traces of grace, evidence that God was carefully guiding us through his grand story the entire time. And that brings us to our final resolution, Part 6, A Life Held Up. The void is greedy. We established that. It can, and it for sure will, easily swallow rootless earthly beauty. But it absolutely cannot swallow meaning that comes straight from eternity. The void is completely, 100% powerless against the eternal meaning provided by God. When your foundation is actually rooted in the Creator, that emptiness simply has no jurisdiction over your soul. None. Because at the end of the day, true having, true presence and meaning in this crazy life isn't about what you manage to tightly grip in your own fragile, temporary hands. It is about finally knowing exactly who holds you. When you realize that the Creator of eternity is the one holding you up, that fear of nothingness just vanishes entirely. Thank you so much for joining me on this really profound explainer today. Keep reflecting on this and honestly ask yourself, whose hands are holding your story?